Of day 37 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry Tranche 2 Phase 2. It's the third day of evidence of HN1. The undercover police officer was deployed into animal rights groups in the early 90s. I'm joined by Belinda, Harvey. We've heard a lot since I did the last video, but I think it's really important just to focus on the last things we've been talking about. The other day, you remember that I said Liz Fuller was being asked by the chair to relax the redactions on one part of her evidence. It turns out that part of evidence is to do with a suicide attempt that she made. It was then... It's her evidence that HN1 was the first person that she contacted. He was the first person to comfort her. The sequence of events then is within 7 days of that. He helped her move, and he started a sexual relationship with her. He claims not to remember lots of the things. He claims it was perfectly justified for him to put all that information in a report and distributed it to the Special Branch. It's just been absolutely appalling. Belinda, what do you make of it?
Well, I mean, the main thing I would say is, these police seem to be suffering from a collective kind of amnesia. It's like, you wouldn't think that they were intelligent or elite squad at all. Basically, it's like they just can't remember anything, any details, which is in common with a lot of the other ones as well. But, HN1 in particular... he's acting as some kind of passive observer of his reports. So, he's saying things like, oh yeah, if I've written it there, then that must be how it happened. He's not actually recalling anything independently, as far as I can see. I mean, very occasionally he will suddenly remember a conversation in great detail.
When it suits him.
When it suits him, exactly. And I think just generally the way the police are being is, really, really showing how far the police in general have got to come in terms of their attitudes, and to modernising generally. It's like they don't want to admit anything. You'd think we were still in the 1970s and 80s, the way that they're talking. It's just shocking, really.
Yeah, it is absolutely appalling. I really find it's difficult to talk about because it's so affecting. The raw emotion on show from what was the reality of what he put, but then the clinical way that he's talked about in his reports. This is somebody who's clearly an incredibly vulnerable person, an incredibly vulnerable time in their life, facing some real difficulties, who has chosen to do something really, really bad in attempting suicide. And he's just seen it as an opportunity to file a report about the mood of an activist who he's targeting. It's clear that she saw him as the person that she trusted the most to comfort her when dealing with the reality of her life, and he saw that as just part of his job. He claims that she wasn't at all vulnerable. He saw her as strong and committed, and it was absolutely fine, that she really truly was right out of it with it. A few days later, when he started having a sexual relationship with her, he sees that that was a sequence of events, but he doesn't think that she was in any way vulnerable from the fact that she had attempted to take her own life. It's just appalling.
Yeah, I mean, the total lack of respect generally for women, and particularly today, looking at this particular case, it's just shocking how little regard that these police have for members of the public. And the lack of integrity. Just, it's the pattern with certainly all the police from Bob onwards. The pattern is quite consistent, that these women are seen as objects, just to be used to further their careers. There's absolutely total disregard for any duty of care that you would expect the police to be showing. It's really quite upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, he literally said it didn't occur to him. It was put to him that as a police officer, being presented by somebody who was in danger of harm, did he consider his duty of care towards a member of the public? And he said, I mean, he's so guarded, yet he lets through so many things which reveal so much about his character. A complete bastard. I mean, there's no other fucking term for it. A complete bastard. He's got such clarity of recall about the meeting he had with his managers afterwards. He's got such clarity of recall of supposedly the conversation where she made the first move, according to him, though he has now backtracked on that. When pushed, he's backtracked terribly. But he claims that he never knew about the childhood trauma, which was the root cause of this suicide attempt, which is something which she did share with the inquiry the other day. I didn't report on it, and then there was a restriction order on it. Liz's claimed she didn't want a restriction order on it, but I don't want to talk about it. It's too extreme. And it's just this was something that she really bonded with him by being able to talk to him about. He simply has no memory. He says that, he's not disputing the fact that she told him, but then he doesn't remember what it was. Just the lack of humanity of this character, this individual, is just so galling. He is literally beneath contempt. I don't know how anybody. It really makes. It really makes you question people in general. Just like to be in that situation with someone who is in such a vulnerable situation, who has gone through the worst possible things, and seeing that as an opportunity, because it's obviously a professional opportunity for him, but it's also a personal gratification opportunity for him to have sex with somebody. I haven't got any words. It's just so awful.
Yeah, I mean, another pattern amongst these undercover police is, again, HN1 particularly today is showing how cold and emotionless a person that he is. And this is very much in contrast to, what you pick up about most of the women who are actually very emotionally intelligent women, who have great integrity. Generally, there is quite a pattern of women who've, suffered from difficulties in their childhood. I don't know why that pattern is there. If they're actually searching it out, or, and it's very upsetting that is being taken so much advantage of in such a callous way. These men are almost criminals. I really just can't understand how these can be an elite squad of police.
Yeah, when Liz gave evidence on Tuesday, I described it as cutting out her heart and throwing it into the middle of the room. She bore her soul, and this was not somebody who wanted to do that. She's not the sort of person who was like telling people her personal business in any way, shape, or form. But she came to this process, and she didn't hold anything back. The contrast of that with the bullshit we have heard from HN1 today couldn't be more stark. He has been entirely self-serving. He has no respect for the process. He even admitted earlier on today that, the only time he really broke from his programming was when it was revealed that he wasn't told something and he thought it was unprofessional. Yeah. And for him, this was the worst thing that happened, was the fact that a colleague didn't tell him a piece of information about one of his targets having some suspicions about him. Yeah. That was the worst thing that happened. He believed. He said right at the beginning of 3 days ago on Wednesday, when he started giving evidence, that when people hear the full story of his relationship with Liz Fuller, they would understand and see it from his point of view. I don't think there's any human being on this planet who could see it from his point of view. He is nothing than a predatory rapist. It's in order to go into those situations. I think it is very clear that these undercover officers were targeting vulnerable women, and the more they found the most vulnerable person in the group that they could, and used the vulnerabilities of people that they were targeting to further their own ends. Whether that was professional ends in terms of getting information they could put into reports to further their own career, or whether it was to manipulate people for their own gratification. It seems that is the entire modus operandi of the unit. And it is so stark. It is laid so bare. I think Emma Gargata has done a very good job of teasing out of HN1 things that he didn't want to say. I mean, he had to backtrack so much on so many things, but particularly on this one thing. There is nothing credible about his evidence. He has been appalling in every way. It's just awful.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody should, somebody who's in charge of the police, the way that it appears to the public, should be taking these men to one side and saying, look, come on, you need to get real here and give better evidence, because it's just totally not good enough. It really is not good enough.
It really isn't. I mean, just a few other words about the other stuff that was covered before we got to the stuff about the relationship with Liz Fuller. Before the break, he was asked to put a list of people, because HM1's claiming that he didn't present himself as someone who would do low-level direct action or high-level direct action, and there were other people who were the same and still trusted, like he was. The examples he gave on that list were Jeff Shepherd, Brendan McNally, Paul Gravitt, and there was one other name, wasn't there? I can't remember what it was. But I mean, essentially all people who had a history of taking part in direct action. It was just laughable. I mean, 3 of those names were on the list of the top 20 ALF activists who he claimed were planning murder. Brendan McNally, supposedly, he believed was about to commit an assassination of a vivisector. Yet he claimed that, like him, they were people who wouldn't have got involved in direct action. There is nothing to be believed about this man. All his evidence should be treated with a complete suspicion. How on earth he's managed to get the level of anonymity that he has, so we don't know who he is. I mean, I dread to find out what responsibility he currently has in this society, because this is somebody who just could not be trusted with anything. I'm as a man, as a heterosexual man, I find it incredibly difficult to hear that how fucking cynically manipulative these men have been, to know that it makes you just feel fucking dirty, and it's just so fucking gross. This man is such a liar. I've run out of words, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Not really, no. I think you've said that really well.
We're back. There's more to come. He'll be back again this afternoon. There's a lot more on Liz Fuller. There's a lot more of other things. Apparently, he will be. We haven't got through enough of the evidence. He will be made to return. Apparently this stuff should have been covered yesterday, but it's just been. All his word clouds and nonsense that he comes out with has made it last much longer. So he will be being recalled. We don't know when yet. But yeah, thanks for joining in, and I'll see you this afternoon. Cheers.